Strengths-based leadership, elitist catch phrase, or pathway to success for regular folks. My name is Wendy Mahonen, and I hope you enjoy the following presentation. In their 2001 bestseller, Now Discover Your Strengths, Marcus Buckingham and Donald Clifton discuss their desire to start a revolution, a strengths revolution. The authors write about their research from working with psychologists and successful corporations, indicating the power and importance of shifting away from a culture of forcing employees to correct weaknesses or shortcomings and toward a culture of identifying and building upon strengths. Tom Rath continued this work 6 years later in the 2007 bestseller StrengthsFinder 2.0. Rath describes his work with Donald Clifton by stating their goal was to start a global conversation about what's right with people. The works of Clifton and Buckingham in 2001 and the extension of their work by Rath in 2007 are tied to the Gallup organization's surveys and action planning with regard to employee engagement. The StrengthsFinder assessment helps individuals determine their top 5 signature themes or strengths. From a list of 34 themes, the individual must first read one of the StrengthsFinder books or enroll in a StrengthsFinder course to receive a unique code. The code gives the individual access to an online assessment. Once the individual completes the assessment, he or she will receive a list and description of his or her top 5 signature themes. For example, someone with adaptability as one of his or her top 5 themes might be known as someone who goes with the flow or takes things one day at a time. A restorative individual is adept at dealing with problems. The signature themes indicate an individual's area of strength. The research of Buckingham, Clifton, and Rath, as well as others, indicates focusing on developing the strengths into profound strengths will help employees become more successful and engaged. Okay, so we understand the compelling argument for a strengths revolution and why it's important. So now what? Before we dive into the rhetoric associated with the strengths leadership or a strengths-based culture, we should frame how we will read the text, so to speak. As Brummett 2010 explains, we can read the ideologies of others by asking 4 critical questions. Number 1, what should the audience think or do? Number 2, what assumptions does the text ask the audience to make? Number 3, how does the audience know what the text claims? And number 4, who is empowered or disempowered by the text? Consider these 4 questions as we review the rhetoric or text on the strengths movement at a large corporation. Pay particular attention to the last question and think about who the audience is and if any groups are empowered or disempowered by the text. You may recall the name of the corporation used as the basis for this project was changed because of Employee Code of Conduct requirements to protect the company's internal information. For this project, we'll refer to the company as Big Red Corporation, or BRC for short. The BRC philosophy maintains that personal development occurs through combining innate talents or strengths with competencies. This philosophy reinforces Rath's work, which holds knowledge, skills, and practice are also important parts of the strengths equation. Without basic facts in your mind and skills at your disposal, talent can go untapped. The BRC literature and philosophy say the following about strengths. An individual can determine his or her top 5 talent themes by completing the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment. These talents and themes typically do not change over time. BRC also says that competencies are learned critical behaviors, or the things an individual learns to do well over time. Competencies are tied to a person's role in the organization. According to Rath, it is possible to add talent where little exists through working hard, but the research suggests that this is not the best use of one's time. Instead, the most successful people start with a dominant talent and then add knowledge, skills, and practice. Moreover, BRC focuses more heavily on strengths than on competencies. Now, this is not to say that an employee at BRC does not need certain basic skills or competencies for his or her role. Some roles require specific skills or expertise. BRC expects employees to have at least a few core competencies tied to the corporation's vision and values. Nevertheless, the company literature emphasizes the importance of developing strengths over competencies. Now that you understand what the Strengths Revolution is all about and the rhetoric which explains the BRC philosophy on strengths, you may have a few common questions. These are the same questions many employees at BRC have after their first exposure to the strengths concept. The first question is, how do you develop a strength? Even if one knows his or her signature strengths, he or she must know how to apply it. The StrengthsFinder books and courses provide some basic explanations for how to develop strengths. The StrengthsFinder 2.0 book includes sections called Ideas for Action with suggestions for each strength. However, these suggestions provide only abstract steps that apply only to a person's soft skills. Much of the corporate literature implies that simply knowing one's strengths or signature themes will automatically help individuals embark on their trip up the corporate ladder. The other common question employees at BRC might ask about applying their strengths is, what strengths should you develop? The BRC philosophy recommends employees identify where their strengths and competencies intersect. Then they should determine where these match the organizational need. For those who have not completed the StrengthsFinder assessments or read the books published by the Gallup organization, there are still ways to identify a strength. Some of these are listed here. A sense of urgency and engagement, losing time from being engrossed in an activity, rapidly learning new information or approaches, feeling drawn to something even when stressed or tired. If an employee consistently notices any of these, he or she should try to determine where the strengths intersect with organizational goals or values and apply them. One tool to make answering the question of which strengths to develop is the competency self-assessment, seen here. Now that we've introduced the concept of strengths-based leadership, discussed the rhetoric and how it relates to the BRC philosophy, and addressed some of the common questions employees have about applying their strengths to their role at BRC, let's examine a bit more of the text. What do the employees have to say about building a strengths-based culture? During the fall of 2013, the Talent Development Organization for the BRC Enterprise created a moderated message board on the company's intranet site. The message board is internal only and therefore not available to the general public or anyone who does not work for BRC. The message board is, however, available to all BRC employees. It is important to note that an article appeared for nearly 2 weeks on the BRC intranet advertising the message board. The introductory paragraph appearing with the online moderated message board includes a statement explaining our BRC Strengths Leadership Model applies to everyone. On the next few slides, we will focus on this specific statement to prove or disprove its validity by viewing it through the lens of critical organizational theory. The instructions listed on the moderated message board tell participants to read the information about strengths-based cultures on the page, then answer the following question. What are some ways you have developed a strength or championed a strength-based culture with your team? Here are some of the responses. One thing is apparent from examining the responses to the moderated online message board. The rhetoric for fostering strengths at BRC, although compelling, provides very little direction or instruction regarding next steps or specific actionable steps one can take to capitalize on his or her strengths to achieve career success or even improve current performance. This leads to the question, who is the audience in the first place? The introduction to the message board states the BRC Strengths Leadership Model applies to everyone. Deeper examination of the audience, or those who responded to the message board, provides a few clues regarding the credibility of the claims that the model applies equally to everyone. This graphic represents the total number of responses and all of the roles represented. It is obvious from reviewing this pie chart that employees in various learning and development, project management, and marketing roles participated in the message board more than other groups. Remember, I pointed out earlier that the message board was open to all employees. After determining the job role of each employee who responded to the message board, I searched an internal human resources database within BRC to determine salary ranges for each job family represented in the message board. Keep in mind, these may change based on geography, and it's an average. The employees who connected with and took the time to respond to the message board earn, on average, $84,525 each year. This begs the question, does the strengths revolution at BRC apply to everyone? This is what the company's rhetoric would have us believe. In conclusion, according to Eisenberg, Goodall, and Trethewey in 2010, the term ideology refers to the basic and often unexamined assumptions about how things are or how they ought to be. The strengths leadership rhetoric at BRC asks the audience to adopt or buy in on the value of using strengths to achieve professional success. The text examined in this presentation asks the audience to believe that the strengths leadership is good and powerful. More importantly, the text asks the audience to believe it applies to everyone equally, regardless of his or her position within the corporation. The text also implies an abundance of instruction and actionable steps for transforming one's strengths into top 5 signature themes into a thriving career. Some other findings reveal that some groups may indeed be empowered by the strengths leadership rhetoric, and likewise, other groups are disempowered. For example, the data regarding job role and average salary strongly suggests that higher paid professionals within the company primarily connect with strengths leadership. Lower paid workers within the company did not have time, motivation, or the means to respond to the online message board. Another finding is that the text, in this case the corporate rhetoric at BRC in the form of email communications, training courses, flyers, intranet articles, and the moderated message board, asks the audience to make assumptions about strengths leadership without offering much in the way of evidence to support these assumptions. For instance, the introductory statement on the message board states that the leadership philosophy applies to everyone. However, many employees at BRC work in production roles and do not have the luxury of time to read about strengths leadership, complete the courses, or respond to the message board. Finally, despite the helpful information about strengths included in the training courses and the Strengths Finder books, the audience seems to expect more instruction regarding actions or steps to capitalize on one's strengths. Some future research. The strengths revolution is well documented, and therefore one might assume this is an area with limited or no room for additional research. I argue to the contrary. An abundance of opportunity exists for future research. Answers to some of the how questions would serve as the foundation for compelling research. Early on in the vetting process for this project, I considered marrying the concepts presented in Now Discover Your Strengths and Strengths Finder 2.0 with a book like Flawless Execution. I hope to prove how to use the information about one's strengths to execute on projects, missions, and assignments. This is still an intriguing project that I hope to tackle someday, but I quickly realized the scope of this type of research was not quite in line with or appropriate for this particular assignment. Additional future research regarding the divergence in role and salary for those who appear to connect with the strengths movement would also prove valuable. Scholars may wish to dive deeper into why individuals in certain roles felt compelled to participate in a conversation about strengths leadership and building a strengths-based culture, whereas others were disconnected or removed from the conversation.